In this tutorial, we're going fully procedural. We'll create custom terrain in Blender using geometry nodes, no image textures or modifiers required. This is powerful for animating or dynamically controlling landscapes. We're going to build that from scratch. First, what you're going to need to do is go into Edit, Preferences, and go to Get Extension. And then you'll type in Landscape and just go ahead and install it. Once you've installed it, let's go ahead and add another add-on. So go into add-ons and activate the node wrangler, and then you'll see what we do with this. I already have it installed as well. Go ahead and save your preferences and come out. Let's start by creating a plane, and we'll scale it up to 10. And we're going to go in and add a geometry nodes modifier. There we are. So let's start by subdividing the geometry nodes. I'll go ahead and open a window right here. And let's change this to our geometry nodes editor. With our plane selected, we'll click New, and this gives us our geometry node map. First thing we want to do is add a subdivide. So Shift A, subdivide mesh, and we'll plug it in. Let's go ahead and give it a level of anywhere from 6 to 8. I'll use 10 for now. Actually, let's go ahead and make it 8 so it's not too hard on the computer. If you want to see what's happening, you can go into wireframe and you can see we have new subdivisions. If I turn this to 2, you see we have less. So let's go back to 8 and have more subdivisions. I'm going to turn this off for now. So once we've added our subdivision mesh, let's go ahead and add a few nodes that we're going to use to adjust this. So first, let's go ahead and add a set position. This will help with the nodes that we're going to add to work around the text coordinates, okay? But now let's go ahead in this order, and we'll add an image, we're going to add a noise texture. Then we want to add a separate XYZ. This will separate the axis and the work we want to do. Then we want to add a combine XYZ. And let's go ahead and connect to our vector of separate XYZ, and we want to affect the Z axis, which is the up and down. So we'll go ahead and connect to the Z, and then we'll take the combined XYZ and put it into the, and then we'll go ahead and put it into the offset. So now you see we have a lot going on. So this is all procedural. We can first come into our noise texture, and then we can adjust the scale of it. I'll bring it down to maybe somewhere like 1, and then we can adjust the roughness as well if we want to control some of the hills. And now the distortion as well too. We can use the distortion to kind of get those valleys in there. So this now is just a matter of tweaking some of your different values in here. And the cool thing is you can use this to animate too. Imagine doing an ocean. So we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of get these valleys looking great. And I'm hitting Control to just get small incremental moves. Once we have that, we can go ahead and add a ramp, a color ramp. The color ramp will help us control the height of the dunes. So I can actually go in here and bring that down as well. Maybe bring this so it makes it more rigid. So it's just a little feature just for your taste. If you wanted to, you can add that if you like. And then to get a little bit of more of the hills and valleys, I'm gonna add a math node So the math node will give me the ability to add a couple of features, either add or multiply in there. So you can see some things already happen with our value. Let's go ahead and add a Voronoi texture. Voronoi texture will kind of give us some of those dunes. We'll add in the value there and adjust the scale. So see, now we're getting a few little features that are coming in here. I can also come in and adjust the details, and all of this right now is just playing around with some of the features to get what you need here. Maybe I'll come back to my scale and just do a little bit more. Now that's if you want that. In fact, as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and turn this into a rigid multifractal. Feel free to experiment with all those. So I'll turn that into a rigid fractal, and so I get a little bit more details on my ridges. I can play around with the distortion here as well. Come back to my scale and add a few more details. Now it's giving me some sharp winds in the case as I did this. And so now we have it. Now we have these pixelated areas. What we want to do is go into our level, and we can just pump that up, and it will smooth it out, you see. So now maybe we have these very high hills in the area. I'm gonna maybe bring this, sorry. When you're doing an adjustment, it's good to bring this down so that you can do your adjustments much more quicker, so it doesn't tax on your machine. So moving forward, I'm gonna go ahead and just texture this so we can see what it looks like. But first, let's look at our light. And let me turn this off. I just added this to check some things. So with our sun, I'm gonna come back into our render mode, and we have our sun. Actually, I need to go ahead and texture this first. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll come in, we'll add a new texture. All right, let's see if that works. Yeah, there it is. We see our render. And let's just call this Desert 2. I have it from a different one. And then again, instead of using the texture we had before, I'm just going to go ahead and add a noise texture so we can kind of see our sand grains. So if I go in and add our base color, you can come in and see that if I bring the scale down, you see that we get a little bit more of this noisiness. And then I'll go ahead and bring in a ramp. This will be our color ramp to give our color of our sand. Give it a nice brown color. Make that a little bit darker. And then what I want to do is I'll bring the scale up just a little bit more here. Let's see. Oh, I didn't change the color properly. So we'll make that a little bit light. And then I'll make this a much darker brown. So you can already see what I'm doing with the sand grain. I'm making very tiny little sand grains on here. I'll bring that up. I actually prefer using sand texture, but maybe I'll just pump this up to 500. And then we can go ahead and add a little bit of bump map to it so we get a little bit of height in there. So I'll Shift A, bump, select that, and I'll plug in the color to, let me zoom this in a little bit more. I'll plug in the color to the height and then the normal to the normal. So see, now we have a little bit of depth going in there. And I'll just bring my strength to 0.5. And so there, now you can see we have another different type of desert, and you can always go ahead and tweak it. I always recommend that you use reference images so you can kind of get an idea of what you'd like to do. So this is another technique. So these are 3 techniques that you've used, and you can use any one that you feel is most suitable for what you'd like to do, but I encourage you to explore and try different ones.